Hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space and my new props. Anywho, I'm a little bit sunburnt, regardless of the amount of sunblock I've been wearing. This very pasty girl is getting a little bit burnt and tanned. Anyway, back to the Halloween series. Like I had mentioned, I think in the first one, they'll be all over the place. I will always link to the previous ones because this will be number 4 so far this year. So I will have a link to that playlist because I put everything into a playlist. So I'll have a link to that to check out if you guys have missed the previous Halloween videos so far. Today's ones use an oldie but goodie favorite set of mine. I've done at least a couple Halloween videos using it. It's the Halloween Gnomies set from Simon Says Stamp, and I just love it. I love it. So let's get into making these cards. So for these cards, I started with the backgrounds because that's just the idea that was kind of brewing the last little while. So I've got some A2 panels of Simon's smooth white cardstock. And I stuck them onto one of my Waffle Flower grip mats. And then I have just some Post-it tape. Very simple blending. Just blending stripes. That's it. So the Post-it tape, my biggest thing was just keeping it straight. I was sort of measuring by the grid lines on the back of this grip mat. But at the same time, not really worried too much about it. Like, as long as it was straight, I didn't really care. So for the first one, I'm doing candy corn colors, which, funny enough, I never mentioned. I think that was my very first Halloween video in this series. I talked about Halloween candy and had asked you guys, what's your favorite? And I never mentioned candy corn. I've talked about candy corn a lot over the years. I love the colors. I have done many candy corn themed cards over the years because I was like, candy corn is just, to me, is just a very Halloween thing. And I have always said, I hate candy corn. As of last year, that is no longer the truth. Tim Holtz and Kathy Zielski convinced me that candy corn poured into a bowl with salted roasted peanuts and also some M&Ms, really, if you want to, make it like perfection. Seriously, total game changer. I don't even want to know how much candy corn I ate last year. It was a lot, but it has to be with roasted, salted peanuts. that makes the difference. There's something about like the, caramel sweetness of the candy corn and the peanuts. And then, if you add some M&Ms in with the mix, it's like the best Halloween trail mix, really. So I have been converted. I actually like candy corn, but only with that. If it's on its own, I'm not going to eat that stuff. I cannot eat candy corn. Ugh. Anyway, so there we go. So that was the first panel. I just blended. These are all Simon Pawsitively saturated inks. I will link, as always. I'll list all the colors I used. But for the candy corn background, it was Mandarin and CITRINE, and then like white strips of just white. On the second panel, I'm using charcoal, amethyst, and field. So very dark gray, purple, and green. And same exact thing. I started the bottom, worked my way up, managed to smear ink on the middle of this, started taking time trying to erase it. I'll link to the erasers I use because I have a sand eraser and then just a regular white eraser. And that's what I use all the time. I use them all the time because I'm always getting ink on my hands when I'm not paying attention and smearing it on my cards. It happens. Those 2 erasers, huge game changer. With this, I stopped myself from continuing. I could have removed it completely, but I was like, it's not going to matter. I'm planning on die cutting this. So, And it was covered up with the purple ink really anyway. Like, it wouldn't have mattered. But those erasers are just little must-haves in the craft room. So, I'll link to them as well. Anywho, worked my way up with this background as well with no white spaces. This was just the 3 colors. And like I always mention, especially with Simon's Pawsitively saturated inks, they go on, you can kind of see like the blending and all that, but they smooth out as they dry and they're always like smooth and fabulous and just perfection. Perfection is overrated and there's no need for it, but it's so nice sometimes when things just do a lot of the work for you. So after I was done the blending, I took a circle wafer die and die cut both of these. I did the die cutting first before I 3D emboss these, because if you emboss and then do die cutting, it's going to press all that detail out. So I did my die cutting, and then I've got my Spellbinders Platinum 6 here with Simon Says Stamps 3D embossing folders. My sandwich is always the original platform of the Platinum 6, and then I have 2 metal shims, and then my embossing folder, which today's embossing folder is the Gradient Dot embossing folder. This came out recently just with the Just a Note release. And I had it in my head and I was like, ooh, if I like ink blend stripes and then run it through with this embossing folder, it's going to like, look at this texture. Look at it. It's so fun. So I always mist my cardstock as well. That's why I have my flour sack cloth laid out. That's just to keep me from getting water absolutely everywhere, because that's just what happens. So, and then because I had ink blended these, I misted the back of them so that I don't mess up the ink, although that could create a lot of fun texture too. Just depends on the look you're going for. So did that with both of these card fronts. So they've got the die cut circles, and then they've been embossed with that gradient dot. And then to step it up even more, I just took a little sanding block here. And again, I'll link to these. Simon does sell them. I've had mine for years upon years. And sanding blocks are another kind of little must-have in a sense. You can do things like this, and I've shown this in the past. This also works really nicely if you emboss pattern paper or white core cardstock. Like some cardstocks are color, but they have like a white core or a craft core. And you can emboss, and then you use the sanding block to lightly sand over that embossing, and it will reveal the core. So in this case, because I ink blended, I'm removing that lightly with the sanding block, and it's revealing like the white core of the cardstock. And again, just very light sanding. You don't need much, and it just gives it a little extra something. So I went over both of these panels with it, and it's obviously way more obvious on this darker one, and then set those aside. So these cards could easily be made into shaker cards. I thought about it, but just honestly, I just wasn't in the mood. It was just one of those days. So instead, I have just a panel, another A2 panel of white cardstock, and I put it in my mini Misty, and I used the die cut card front as my guide so I can stamp the sentiments, and these are from that Halloween Gnomies stamp set. And centered that in there, and then I'm going to stamp that onto this panel with Simon's Intense Black ink, a alcohol marker friendly ink. I could have stamped this directly onto the card base, but at this point I wasn't certain if I was going to do a shaker, and plus, since I was going to be lining up a sentiment within the window, I was like, I'm just going to play it safe and do this on a separate piece of cardstock versus stamping it on the card base. But either way would work. So I stamped that onto both of the panels, and then I also stamped the Gnomies that I wanted to use and the little accessories onto another piece. This is again Simon's Smooth White cardstock. Stamped it with the Intense Black ink, and then coloring them in with Copic markers. And right now this is real-time coloring. This is how I color, normal time. And then I'm going to super speed this up, because otherwise this video is going to be way too long, and we're gonna melt my laptop trying to process all of the footage. So yeah, I just started with like their little noses and the one's hands, and then did my Halloween colors. So obviously for the little candy corn gnome, I went with candy corn colors, and darkest to lightest, as is tradition for me. I just find it the easiest, honestly. Really, when it comes to alcohol, any marker coloring, any coloring whatsoever, start with what you're comfortable with. Going lightest to darkest gives you much more control. Like, that's how I learned, was lightest to darkest, and that's great. It does give you way more control. It's a lot easier to add more like deeper colors than it is to try and like blend them out and take them away. So I did yellows, oranges, and then very pale grays, so C1 and C00 for all of the white areas. So really, this was very simple coloring. And then for this little like vampire gnome, I went with the colors that I used for the ink blending. So purple, green, and dark gray. And I did that with the little stars too. I did one purple and one green because why not? They're just cute. So worked my way through, not overly following any rules. Like I always say this, but it's true. Not really following any rules of like light sources or anything like that. I just stick the color on wherever I feel like on. Yeah, just is what it is. So he got a purple hat and a green outfit and then a dark gray cape. Love it. These guys are just the cutest things ever. And yeah, they were fun to color. It was pretty then easy coloring. I went a little bit darker with the little vampire's beard, so just slightly darker grays, and that was it. Once I had colored them, before adding any white gel pen highlights, I used my and I colored the sentiments. That was also the thing I did. So I kept the sentiments simple. You could totally color, although I'm pretty sure I've done that in one of the previous videos I did with this set. I think I colored the Halloween in like the candy corn colors, but I decided to just color these with really dark grays. So not quite black, so they've got a little bit of depth to them, but yeah, just a nice gradient of cool grays. So after I colored those in, this is where I pulled out my Tonic Aqua Shimmer pen. I've shown these in a bunch of videos. In fact, this one, I don't know how many years I've had this one, but this, I just realized this one's like almost completely used up. But they look like nothing on camera. And even in real life, when you first apply it, sometimes, depending on where the light is, you don't really notice it. But I will show at the end with my flashlight. You guys will see how unbelievably sparkly these are. I love. So you do the Aqua Shimmer pen first if you're planning on adding white gel pen highlights. If you do the white gel pen first and then you go in with this Aqua Shimmer pen, it will dissolve the white gel pen and smear it. It's the same thing with glossy accents. Do the glossy accents first, let everything dry, and then you can go over it with your white gel pen, because the glossy accents, the white gel pen is basically, in a sense, it's water reactive, and it'll just get absorbed and smear, and you'll just have a bad time. So white gel pen last, always. And same thing, I did not bother to follow any rules with, where a light source was. I just went in with the white gel pen and added it wherever I thought it needed to be. And then once I was done with that, I went in with the coordinating wafer dies and die cut all those little elements. And then my card fronts, I trimmed down. So the ones that I ink blended and embossed and everything, I trimmed those down to 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then the panels that go underneath with the sentiment, I trimmed down even just slightly more, just to make life a little easier when I adhere everything together. And then again, would be super easy to make these into shakers. Back that opening with some acetate and then just use thicker foam tape. Here I only used Simon's Big Mama foam tape, so I'm getting a little bit of dimension, but it's not quite thick enough. Like you would need to use like either 2 thicknesses of this or just use thicker foam tape, and it would create a really cute little shaker and it would look fabulous. I don't know. I just wasn't in the mood. Who knows? Just is what it is. Anyway, put all that foam tape on the back here though, so it does give it that little bit of dimension, and then stuck that to the sentiment. Did the same thing with the second card front, and then I also used that Big Mama foam tape to pop up all of my little characters and elements and whatnot. Just again, gives it just that little tiny bit of dimension without making these cards like super bulky. So got those adhered to the candy corn themed card, and then did the exact same thing with the little vampire and his little elements there. Got those stuck on with the Big Mama foam tape as well. And then after I had finished getting all of these adhered to the card fronts, I need to do the card bases. So my card bases are going to be top folding white A2 note cards. And I've got a couple of little punny sentiments from the set. That's another reason why I love this stamp set, because it's got such good little sentiments that go with the different gnomes, and it just makes me happy. So I also wanted to stamp this spider web. on the inside of the cards. So I kind of lined it up where I wanted it. And then I used some Post-it tape right at the score line there so I don't stamp past that. And I'm going to ink this up with that same intense black ink. And then the little spider in this stamp set is separate. So I'm going to line him up. And I've mentioned this in many Halloween videos. I have pretty severe arachnophobia. It is just something I've had to deal with for many years, and just it's not fun. It's not. But for whatever reason, when it comes to Halloween cards, bring it on. Like, I put spiders on everything. I put them on my little graphics for these videos. Like, even creepy looking ones I'm okay with when it's Halloween. That's the only time it's acceptable. And just anything else? Nope. But yeah, I like them for Halloween, so we're all good. I, for some reason, can compartmentalize with it. So, stamped the little spider, and then stamped the sentiments. And I just, especially for the vampire one, I can't believe I haven't used him before. But yeah, thank you for being a friend. Love it. Absolutely love it. So stamped that one, and then I did the exact same thing with the second card. I just used the other sentiment, which was, you gnome, I'm here for all the candy. You know, add a punny sentiment to things and you pretty much got me. So got the inside stamped, and then I just made sure to adhere the proper card front to the card base so that, you know, sentiment coordinated with what's on the outside, and just adhered those with craft tacky glue. So got those lined up, centered, and adhered, and then decided to add just a little bit of bling. Nothing too crazy. In fact, it's bling I've used just in a couple of recent card videos. I've got some Studio Cadia moss green pearls and mango punch pearls. The colors were perfect. It was just meant to be. So I arranged just a few around both of these little card fronts, and once I was kind of happy with what I had going on, I'm going to adhere these into place with little dabs of craft tacky glue, just picking them up with my little place and stick tool. I think that's what it's called. I always forget. It'll be linked with the supplies like everything else. So got those adhered into place, and then, like I promised, I'm going to turn the flashlight on my phone so that you guys can see the sparkle, because it's fabulous. So I got all that texture going on from the embossing folder, which is just super fun. I love it. And then sparkle. This is why I love the Aqua Shimmer pens. They are fabulous. Seriously fabulous. So subtle, but when the light hits them, it's just glitter. So those are my cards for the moment. As always, like I said, I will have a video, or I will have all the info linked directly below the video. I'll have a link to my blog post. In my blog post, I have all the pictures that you can click on and see full sized. And then I have picture links to all the supplies I used. So that's in the blog post, linked directly below the video. And then I'll have the supply list below as well. If you don't want to jump anywhere else, it's all listed and linked below. And then at the end, I'll link to the current Halloween playlist that I'll keep adding to as I post more videos for it. And yeah, just stay tuned to the end for that. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.